The moderator of the session is Mr. Dominic, Charter Member of Thai Kerala and Managing Director of CGH Earth. Mr. Dominic, a chartered accountant by qualification, joined his father's business in 1978 at Casino Hotel, Cochin, leaving the accounting firm Messrs. A.F. Ferguson and Company in Bombay. He took over the reins of the enterprise, which grew into a group of hotels and came to be known as Casino Group of Hotels. The group rechristened itself as CGH Earth in 2004, giving further impetus to the strategy it had adopted, giving a clear definition of the value of environment sensitivity, local community inclusion, and adaptation of the local cultural ethos. Dominic has served on several national and state advisory panels on tourism of the government and industry bodies. He is the founder-president of Kerala Travel Mart and founder-member of the Eco-Tourism Society of India. He is the past president of Thai Kerala chapter and was the president of the Cochin Chamber of Commerce. He is the immediate past president of CII Kerala region and presently member of the National Tourism Advisory Council. Over to Mr. Dominic for the opening remarks.
Thank you, Shri Priya. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. To this session, which is titled, we have not given a title except, it's a track on tourism. And more to you. Hype of some time so that we don't get too late in the next session. Let me just give you the context. This is the second edition of TIE, and TIE, last year too we had a session on tourism. And this session in the context of tourism, and in this session, it's not just tourism per se, but the entrepreneurial opportunities in tourism is the focus of our session. And I would like to call this session on tourism as disruptive innovation. We've heard that topic being said in the morning, disruptive innovation. And the speakers who are here are disruptors of the status quo, hopefully, and that will be their claim, and their value proposition is they are innovators which will change the model. What is the model that we have? That's the next question. What is the Kerala model? What was our success? Let me on that. So I talk a little about tourism, the model that we know, we have seen it. Going back to a little bit in history, post-independence, Kerala went through years of turmoil. We saw the red flag and the hammer and sickle as prominent actors in our stage. Consequently, it scared away what is called FDI and FII. And consequently, the benefit that it did to Kerala was it kept the smokestack away. Yes, it made Kerala green. And hence, often said, red made Kerala green. In this context and in this background is what we are discussing to say how tourism has rolled on in Kerala. And we found that at a stage had been reached, for example, in comparison, and I think it's important to understand the context, the platform which is called Kerala. Sometimes we call it Made in Kerala. What is Made in Kerala? It is inclusive, it is participative, it is compliant with the regulations, though it could be argumentative. And this is the platform in which you work as an entrepreneur. What is the opportunity that you can seize, what you can sense in this platform? Now, let us look at another platform, and that platform, and not that they are any better or we are any better or they are any worse. I call that the Goa platform. In tourism in Goa follows another direction. And we can see that people who both of them are largely and grossly different from each other. People go to each of these destinations for different reasons. And hence, the entrepreneurial opportunities in these two are going to be vastly different. Before I go further, let me just talk about, again, a term which we constantly use, and I came across him many years ago. His name was Dr. Peter Adderhold. He was a professor in tourism in the University of Denmark, and retired, and he set up what is called the Adderhold Institute of Tourism Studies. What Adderhold did, he did a survey in 1986, and the survey was what made a person choose a destination, what made him go to choose a region, or what made him choose the kind of holidays he went for. And based on the survey, he put the surveyed population of about 5,000, and this survey was in Europe and targeted towards Asia. And the surveyed population, he put them into two baskets. One basket he called the sun, sand, surf traveler basket. And who was the sun, sand, surf traveler? He was the one who wanted to be sure, predictable, familiar. He wanted to be in familiar brands, do things which he was accustomed to, eat his food which he always had. He wanted to be absolutely sure of what he's going to get, that no uncertainties at all. And that he called the sun, sand, surf traveler. The other he called the alert independent traveler. He was one who was on a voyage of discovery, searching for wonder, and a sense of adventure had to be present in his. Also, it was found that he would choose destinations which were more pristine, which were more inclusive, and he was concerned about the impact of his own travel on that destination. There were two different types of customers, two different products, two different platforms. And in 86, in his survey, 95% or 90% of the surveyed population fell into, not surprisingly, into the SSS, and just 5% into the AIT. It then becomes a choice to be made when you create a product, into which customer would you like to cater to? Who would you go? Is it the big mass of the 90%, or the small one of the 5%? Adderhold has been continuing to do his studies every few years, and on the same and discovered that year to year, or at least every 3 years, that whereas the sun, sand, surf has been on a decline, the AIT was on a rise. So one he called it the sunset, and the other was sunrise. So again, but still, it was two kinds of customers, and still the predominant majority were the SSS. The choice came for enterprises now to create a model on what is the product, to which market do you cater to. Here, let me share my experience, and of the experience of as an entrepreneur in Kerala, and I would say, does it fit? And this week I go back to around the time in 1988, and or in 1991, when the enterprise which I'm engaged with, CGH Earth, dealt with this, and we had to have a choice. And when we ventured outside of CGH Earth, was formerly called Casino Group of Hotels. It had a traditional hotel, business hotel on Wellington Island, which continues to exist. An opportunity presented itself to us at that time, and which took us to Lakshadweep. There we made some discoveries, and the discoveries were that to create a product, what were the key ingredients? And one of the key discoveries was that tourism was more a knowledge industry, more a creative industry rather than an industry which required huge amount of capital. You can choose. In fact, there is that in every industry, in every sector, the choice can be made where you would like to. In the context of what we were then, let me give you a context here. The government of India, Prime Minister Gandhi went to Lakshadweep in the year 88. And as a consequence of his trip there, they decided to privatize the island of Bangaram. And invitations were made to hotel groups in the country to come and to visit and make a proposal as they deem fit. And at that time, Lakshadweep was a faraway place. The flights were not existing, and there was a ship which would take almost a month for you to go and come back. But they also said those who had sent expressions of interest will be taken there and brought back. So opportunities would come. The reasons of doing things are so many. At that time, the only reason I gave our expression of interest, because the grapevine said, the big and mighty, the big of the land are all keen about getting this contract. And I thought to myself, what chance will then existing casino hotel have a chance to compete against the Taj Group, the Oberois, the Leelas, and even the Four Seasons were there in a collaborative manner. What chance did we have? Doesn't matter. I thought this is a good way to get to see the island. I'll send an expression of interest and they'll take you there and I'll come back. That was my single only purpose of sending expression of interest. Get to see the island. So they flew us there in helicopter in batches. They flew us there in helicopter. We spent a night in the spectacularly beautiful island of Bangaram. Next day, took us to Kavarati. And at Kavarati, the administrator, who later became the chairman of the Right to Information Commission, he asked each one of us, gentlemen, now that you've seen, tell us what proposal that you have in mind, or what you have for us. Most people said that it would take us a few months to tell you what we have in mind, because we need to do a detailed techno-economic feasibility study. But we expect that we will spend we propose investments to the region of 50 and 60 crores. In 88, a crore was a huge sum of money. And but we will make the model we are looking at is Waikiki, Honolulu, the big names of that time. When it came to my turn to explain what is the proposal I had, and as far as I was concerned, the purpose of my visit has already been achieved, to see the land, to see the island. So I had nothing to lose. So as my proposal, I don't need months. I'll tell you now that give me 3 months to commission the hotel. Because what we are going to do, and I had to find a model which suit my resource, which did not require the crores, but which required only a few lakhs. And the model that I said is the existing hotel, because when the Prime Minister came and stayed in the hotel, they had swooped it up. They had put some fancy tiles and some fancy roofs of metal, and all I would do is revert it back it was, like the villager would have done it. Not because I had any greater learning or no better understanding, because that's a model which did not require the crores. And it so happened, I think, just to cut this short, as it was, I think, a very brave bureaucrat and an accident of fate that finally this model, which did not require the investment in crores, was finally we landed with the contract. And when the hotel opened, 3 months later, the hotel was one where the advertised facilities were the absence of telephone, television, newspaper, air conditioning, hot water, room service, multi-cuisine restaurant, swimming pool, all advertised to be absent. Then what on earth will people want to come here for? We said, here you will have nature in its most pristine form, but on condition that you will respect that. And the customer was also asked when he came here, if you were to smoke, please bring back the butt in your pocket. That the evolution of that product said that the customer is not the king, and that almost to say to make that statement, but he comes after the environment, after the land, and after the local community. And that relationship made the product. That made it unique. And from that model is when we had a new learning. And that learning was contributed to, coming back to the subject of our discussion, the disruptive innovation that made us come back to Kerala. And the first investment that we made after that was in a place in Periyar, in Thekadi, in a hotel which we call Spice Village, where the same model, keep it less, that the ordinary is the extraordinary, that we have it what it takes. You don't need to create anything. And we followed the indigenous people of the hills were the Mannan. They built the cottages using elephant grass for the roof and bamboo. We called them Mupan, and they built it. The architect adopted it for modern tourism. Statler, considered as the father of modern hoteliering in the 30s, and in fact, it is Statler's endowments which created Cornell. Statler he is responsible for many principles. One of them was that when he was asked what makes a successful hotel, what are the three things that make the first successful hotel, was the question put to him. He said 1, location, 2, location, 3, location. What Statler, it tantamounted to what he was saying, that room with a view is what will result in success of a hotel. That today, and I'm saying that today is now being put on its head. It's no longer a room with a view, but how does the room look from the view? If you have a cluster of buildings which have marred the view, no longer would people are interested to go there. So the models keep changing, reasons keep changing. And today we were in Kerala, which were at the entry of tourism. Tourism to Kerala, which is considered such a grand success, and Kerala can, that word which is coined, which P.H. Kurian referred to, that Kerala can was looking at the model of tourism in Kerala. In that, I was coming back to what Statler said. He was also responsible. One more. He had Statler's rule of thumb. The Statler's rule of thumb was $1 of price for every $1,000 of investment, as a rule of thumb about pricing to investment. So, or translated rupees, 1 rupee to every 1,000 rupees of investment. Spice Village, using this model of being without. It was a hotel without air conditioning, without television, with grass roof, and in that model, the 40-room hotel in 1991 cost 120 lakhs, which is 3 lakhs per room. Using Statler's model, Statler's rule of thumb, the pricing should have been 300 rupees. But instead, the price was over 2,000 rupees. How did the other 2,000 rupees come from? How could we charge it? Yes, it came from resources, from assets, which came free, which was pristine nature and community. And that was, you are trying now attracting or appealing to the customer, which he referred to, which Adderhold refers to as the alert independent traveler. He was the one who valued these. He was the one who was prepared to pay a price for these. And Spice Village, in a very short while, became an extraordinary success. It was a new model. And that model was a clear demonstration to the community, to all around. What was Spice Village as a model? It was cottages as built by the villagers. It was the people who worked there were boys and girls from it's from Kumli village. What did they wear? They wore munda and jubba or the Kerala sari. What food did we serve? It was put and kadala. against the model in 1991. Today these they look like very obvious answers. Against the model in 1991, when hotels always offered in Indian, Chinese, continental. So the model, and this was a disruptive innovation, and it became a spectacular success at a least cost investment. And what does this disruption do? It told people came and said, hey, this is a place, this is what we do normally. This is the kind of food we eat at home, and still, if those sahibs come and pay such a high price to this, we too can do likewise. And they also did likewise, and they also made a brilliant success of it. And I think this is a study which has been done by IIM Bangalore on a case study. This was one of the triggers which started off what is called the momentum for tourism in Kerala. Many people of that area built similarly, and then it went on, and there were many other models which followed. And that's something I had to say about how disruptive innovation can trigger off so many things. And for an enterprise, and what we need to seek and search is disruptive innovation and the disruption that it can cause. And that the cause of that is it changed the model. It changed many things. Because I know that when just to show an example of the disruption that it can cause, this hotel cost 3 lakhs per room. 2 years later, another brand built another hotel there. It cost them, common knowledge, it cost 27 lakhs per room. That is 9 times more. But when it came to pricing, the hotel which cost 3 lakhs a room was 25% price higher than the hotel which cost 27 lakhs a room. So there is no relationship between price and investment. But in this model of creative, and I think Kerala's success in tourism was for the fact that it linked our destiny to the AIT rather than the SSS. Not that the SSS model is any inferior. There are brilliant successes in the SSS model too. And of course, for us as an enterprise, CGH has been able to create for itself a unique identity, a product loyalty, an attractive. It has to be in keeping with the destination where we were. We harness two of the assets in our core values of environment and community. Environment would mean respect the environment and include the community and be local where you are. There's no need to create something there was no need in this model to become a Disneyland. Walt Disney was somebody who created something spectacular by putting things out. Here, your local, the ordinary, the local village was all the reason why people came here for. So that is a model which was a success model for Kerala. And I think Kerala's success in the last 25 years, the growth has become on account of products and services which were harnessing the local, respecting the environment. In fact, 2 years ago in Berlin, there was a similar workshop where it was titled Luxury and Sustainability, Friend or Foe. Often it is thought the luxury and sustainability are on opposite sides. And that's a common belief and common thought. It is not. Today, luxury, the more luxurious you are, the more sustainable that you have to be. 75 years ago, you could walk into a high street shop in London and buy a mink coat. Today, you dare not do that. I'm just showing you an extreme example. The world has changed. The products have changed. Tourism is changing. People's aspirations are changing. It is in this context, in year 2013, that we have now reviewed what are the entrepreneurial opportunities in tourism in this model for Kerala. It is possible, of course, you can disrupt this model too. But it is important that you have a model that you will think is appropriate for your product. You cannot say, look, that guy has been he's successful, I will do likewise. That is not true. It will not.
Today, if IT does badly, a hotel which is in Technopark will automatically drop. If today, industry which, see, all industries support hotels, and all of us know that the first thing that gets affected when the market drops is your travel costs. So we are at the forefront of all innovations. And that was what I learned from early times. And I remember when I went to create Lucknow for the Taj, my boss asked me one question. She was Camellia Punjabi, one of the great marketing persons in the hospitality industry. She asked me, and I was building the Taj Hotel in Lucknow. And I thought I had built Taj Bengal at that time, and I was riding high. And I thought I was one of the biggest names. And I was a 28-year-old upstart. And I said, Camellia, come on, ask me, what do you want to know about Lucknow? I've created a fantastic product. The first thing she asked me was, what is the length of the runway? I said, hey, I'm building a hotel. What does the length of the runway got to do with it? She said, listen, how will your guests come? They have to come by air. Today, everybody is buying Airbuses. Did you find out if the Lucknow airport can land Airbuses? You're doubling the inventory. The first thing you should look at is how will your customers come? How convenient is it for people to do business? And that's what she started me off on. And I tell everyone today, after 20 years, that believe me, in UP, and at that time was a Mulayam Singh government, I managed as an individual, Tata person, not in public sector, I was private sector building a hotel. I managed to get the new Lucknow airport done. Then Camellia said that, hey, listen, 90% of the people travel by train. What have you done? He said, you mean to say next time to go to railways? He said, yes, you have to extend the Shatabdi from Kanpur to Lucknow. I said, they will throw me out of the office. I said, have you tried it? I went to the railways, I got an appointment, went to the railways board, they said, hey, he's talking sense, we can easily do it. And the Shatabdi was extended from Lucknow to, from Kanpur to Lucknow, thereby increasing the availability and the opportunity for people to come to Lucknow. We doubled the inventory. It was probably one of the first stories wherein a huge increase in supply did not affect the demand. Why? Because I was a little lucky. The hotel was supposed to open in 92, Babri Masjid happened, so the project got delayed by 2 years. So I had an opportunity to do all this. So that is what innovation is. Sorry, coming back, I just wanted to give a little bit of a background. Coming back to Berggren, see, what I'm going to talk about is the creation of a brand called Berggren. We started this with two guys from the Taj in 2006, September. I, after 30 years, very, very scared, saying that, hey, okay, so far it's nice to be an innovation with the background of a large organization like Tata's. Here you're trying to do something completely on your own. What do you need to do differently? Again, going back to what he talked about, disruptive. So we said that let us start thinking differently. And that is what is the creation and the story behind this brand. I hope I can operate this. I operate an Apple normally, but I've got a friend here who will help me out. I know.
Keys Hotels and Resorts. Everything you need in business and leisure to put your feet up and let your hair down. Keys, we put you at ease.
We said we're creating a brand, a completely new brand. We had an opportunity to partner or get in new brands and everything. But we were told by Berggren, which is a New York-based private equity fund, said, try, you guys are innovative. I had just done Ginger Hotels at that time for the Taj. He said, you've done it. Why not create something completely from start? So the first thing which we did was this. And I'm going to take you quickly through the next 3 slides and you'll understand. And even that ad which we had running on television, created that as a television ad. Okay. So the concept was very, very clearly, when do you put your feet up and relax? You put your feet up and relax if you're at home. Now, what is the unique thing? We in hotels last 30 years, I've heard that we give you, experience home out of home and all that. But yet we decide for you what you should have. Now, what is the first difference which we said we will do? And we were probably, and I don't, if anybody's done it, we said that in your home, you build your own house. So what we did was that we got an external agency in Bangalore to go around the country. I said, look at the 24 to 40, that was the target market we were targeting. Look at people who actually stay in mid-market hotels, paying these prices, but he has he has an aspiration, so it has to have a strong aspirational level, and ask them what they want. And then we used that as a brief to our architects and the operations team to build the hotel. And right through this presentation, you will see what has kept us different and why we keep talking that put your feet up. Because in your house, you decide where everything and what do you want. In Keys Hotel, you've designed the hotel. It's like your house. And that is what it is. So come to our Keys and be at ease. Because we came, we asked, we delivered. Every aspect of Keys has been planned and designed by asking you. And nothing stops you from coming to our Keys. Because, people came back and I said that, look, the only thing which we fixed was the price. I said, look, I want my hotels, if I'm getting into the mid-market space, I want them to sell at 2,500 to 3,500. Please remember that and tell me what you want. So the guys came back and with some fabulous ideas, The first thing they said is that we go to a hotel. A hotel is not because we like to go to the hotel. We are there because it solves the purpose of our work. Because we are there for work, so we need a hotel. So what's the first thing you should do is make sure that we can work comfortably and well. So what do you require? He said, listen, we are not into flashy lobbies and all, but we need a lovely bed to sleep at night. And the right pillow. The biggest problem in a mid-market hotel is that they compromise on mattress and they compromise on the pillow. So we said, okay, we will give them, and we could afford to give them the same quality pillows and mattresses and the towels and everything which is there in a Taj hotel. Because we said that, okay, what is their luxury? The highest thing, we should concentrate on giving it to them. The next thing they said is that, our biggest problem is the shower. If you think of it, it's so disappointing if you don't get that hot shower coming at you. So it's very, very important. If we are there for a meeting, we need to be fresh. So we need a good shower. So we said we should provide that. He said, make sure Wi-Fi is available throughout the hotel. But these days without Wi-Fi, you cannot work. Your internet has to be there. And please do not charge for it. So we said that. He said that, look, you must have a shop. Now we couldn't afford a shop without adding on 2 people. So we created something very unique. We created a dispensing machine. But we said that, hey, we don't want a dispensing machine like there in airports. Because you're always looking for that coin or that change and everything. So we created a dispensing machine. The software of it was connected to the main system. So you can swipe your room card in the dispensing machine, pick up whatever you need, and it's charged at MRP to your room. So it's very, very convenient. So I said that anything you do is to do with convenience. And that is what we learned from the people and we introduced. So this is what our mission was, to refine the hospitality experience for travelers seeking efficient and value for money accommodation in the key business and leisure destinations in India. We plan to do this through partnerships with our colleagues, shareholders and our guests. In return, we create value for each of them. A little bit about Bear Grylls. Nicholas was one of the largest collectors in the world of art. And he has been coming down to India because he loves India. He's always been staying at the Taj, and so he had a fascination for Taj, which is why he said, no, pick up Taj and Oberoi guys. because I liked the way they do business. And he said, look, I wanted to set up a hospitality company in India and take it throughout the world. So we were thrilled that we were part of a journey wherein a New York headquartered company is coming to India to set up a business in hospitality in India, in the mid-market, and then taking it all over the world. So it's kind of a reverse thing than what people have been doing. And what I always admired, I've known Jose for over 20 years, and I've known him ever since I used to come and stay in Malabar. And I used to go across to his hotel, which was the casino at that time, and the work which is done at Lakshadweep and everything. So he's one of the which is innovators in this field, and he's very, very well known for CGH Earth, which he's created. So Nicholas wanted to set up a hospitality company. So he's across the world in 65 countries, and we set it up completely with Berggren help. So this is what it is at right now. It was incorporated in 2006. We've invested 62 million in equity from Berggren. We've got 182 crores in debt, because we said that we need a right mix of debt and equity. The initial focus was to develop and only operate mid-market hotels, service apartments, and upscale resorts. Now let me explain this out here. You see a paradigm shift when it came to resorts. The same individual who was traveling on business said that, hey, when I'm traveling on business, I'm single. But when I'm traveling on a holiday or to a resort, there are two kinds of businesses. One is I'm there on leisure with the family, children, spend a lot more time in the room, so you need much larger rooms. So moment you have larger rooms, you need to have more facilities in the hotel, you needed additional restaurants, you needed to give him more areas, you had to depend on MICE segments, so you needed banquet halls. So automatically the resorts became 5-star, which is why we went in for upscale resorts. Again, it came from that same customer. We have 12 hotels in operation, 6 of them are owned by us, 21 hotels in various stages of development. 6 additional hotels are scheduled to open this year. And we're right across, we're opening the Kochi hotel, we're just waiting for final permissions. And we've got Visakhapatnam opening, these are 2 of our own. And we've got Amritsar, Shirdi, Mumbai and Gurgaon opening. So, as we said that when we were doing our own, we said you have to have a systematic growth plan. You have to operate your entire thing out and set it in different stages. And that's what we've done. And the next slide, and have a holistic company. So you can be across the board. So this is what our plan was. A very, very important part is that we were now growing asset light. So we need an excellent distribution network. Because distribution is a key. Any FMCG, any of the brand which is your retailing will tell you that you have to have large scale distribution. These are our brands. Okay, and this was the journey. As you see that we had completely planned out, and like I said, different stages, and we are growing at that stage. We didn't say that we'll open 100 hotels and everything like with people. In fact, last year we had said that we will open 34 hotels by 2015. We have changed it to 75 this year because we felt that last year we managed to open 15 hotels. Sorry, we managed to open 12 hotels, add on 12. So if we are adding on 12 hotels per year, in 3 years we should be able to add 36. We currently at 35, so 71. Yes, 75 is a doable number. So that is what we are aspiring to be. This is the management team which has got over 200 years of experience. Most of them are ex-Oberoi or Taj. And we depend a lot on our people power, and we've done things differently, like even because people can't travel. So our entire learning process is an e-learning model which we've built ourselves in-house. So every staff learns and gets himself into advanced stages and advanced degrees and gets promoted also through e-learning. So everyone is given an opportunity. Sorry, I forgot to mention another thing, is that each and every member of our staff is part of our reward scheme. Because what we have created from day one is that 5% of our earnings go to the staff. So, and we have a fabulous staff to room ratio. We operate with 60 staff because any additional staff, that means they have to share more. So I've had cases wherein staff, have said that no, we will take on this, we'll take on this. Hey, this is great money, because they know that 5% of what they earn go to them, and also they get more incentives. They grow. We are growing at the rate of 10, 12 hotels, so they get a lot more opportunity. So we're getting a lot of good people coming and joining us. And our strength goes across the board. As I said, that we are center-driven. So we said that we needed to have the right person in the corporate office which supports everybody. So, but it's a very lean structure. We believe, including the MD, by a housekeeping boy, is called by his first name. We said that we have created a hierarchy because of administration reasons. The hierarchy shouldn't fail the system. And the strength and across the board is that we have a central corporate office and then people across the board, and nobody is called a housekeeping assistant and all. They're all called guest service associates or managers. And that's where people and Bergman's strength which we've created. This delivery goes on similar line. I've spoken on it already. And the value proposition which we add. So this is what we said, is that the profile, it's very, very important to understand what is the profile of your customer. And this is how, when we created the name, a lot of people ask, in fact, I talk also on branding a lot, and when we created the Keys brand, people say that, how do you come across Keys? I said, look, I was incredibly impressed that for a hotel company, the name Keys was available. Because everybody keeps talking about keys, keys to this, keys to that, keys. And keys is one of the most common words in hotels, which gave us our name of our bar is Unlock. So after keys, you have the Unlock bar. So we created everything around it, but keeping the brand profile in person. And the difference between Keys Club is our luxury brand, so upscale brand, because we felt that now that we're growing, we needed, and our first upscale hotel has come out in Pune, in Viman Nagar. While the brand personality remains the same, it gives an opportunity for a slightly senior level manager to give the Keys experience. And this is what we've achieved. You won't believe it, in 2009 when Trivandrum opened, it was the first Indian hotel to be a finalist at the World Hospitality Awards in Paris. We competed with a brand in Paris called La Mama Shelter, which has won over 100 awards. And it's one of the iconic hotels in Paris, and with another company in New York. So these are the two hotels we competed with. We were the finalists. The iPod Hotel in New York, won the thing that year. But then Keys Hotel Trivandrum in TripAdvisor, and TripAdvisor covers across all levels, that, including the Tajes and the Oberois, voted the Keys Trivandrum as the 10th trendiest hotel in 2012. It was listed in the top 25, and ranked 10th. And 9 of our 12 hotels of 2013 have received the certificate of excellence. And this is what the product is. We decided that the product, all Keys hotels, the product should sell. So the product of all Keys hotels are identical. You see Cochin and you see Trivandrum, you know that they look the same. And this is what the room is. The room has been completely designed and everything to the specifications. Like, a simple thing. If you see here, I don't know whether I'll be able to take it. Yeah, if you see the, people said that the most difficult thing is to find the right plug point. You're searching, going under the table, over the table, removing this. So make sure you have enough plug points. And right on top, and make sure if I forget the adapter, I don't have to keep calling for an adapter. Now you get plug points which are multi, adapters thing. Make sure you do that. So everything, if you see, we worked it around to suit people and conveniences. This is our bar in Bangalore, which is the Unlock. again, it came from people. They said they wanted a sporty bar where, that now 15 to 20% of our customers are single lady travelers. So it should be very, very, they should be also be able to enjoy it out there. We have a complete floor, which is only in every hotel, 10% of our inventory are for single lady travelers, where we have video phones, so she does not have to open the door at all unless she wants to, because she can continue a complete conversation through a video phone in the room, and the facilities and everything came from what they had listed down as a requirement for them. All our hotel rooms we are very high on security, which again came as an important feature. So every area you go to, some people complain, but we said that look, it's good for you. You have to use your key card. Like if you have a key card to the 3rd floor, you cannot go to the 4th floor. If you have a friend in the 4th floor, he has to come down and use his key card, because then the elevator will open in the 4th floor. So we've gone in and used technology a lot. Then people wanted 24/7 business centers. Again, your key card. Anytime you wanted, you use your key card to open the business center. Automatically, your switches are convenient. Almost finished. Conveniently located, so you can again use it to your advantage. Iron and iron board was again a thing which was requested, which is again given in all the rooms. These are the facilities I had already spoken about, the vending machine. So this is what the Keys Hotel is. I have already gone through that. I'll get knocked on my knuckles if I extend by another 2 minutes. This is where we are currently. This is where our hotels are opening. And I just wanted to take 1 minute to say that, that this is not by design, but it so happened that our first permissions, and although it was a 3rd land we acquired, but our first permissions and our first hotel opened in Thiruvananthapuram. So, when they asked me to speak about the conveniences of doing business in Kerala, I said, hey, it was the most convenient because we opened our first out here. It became the prototype. It's won several awards. The second hotel in the state is opening in Tevara in Kochi with 154 rooms. We have a beach resort. We are actively pursuing. We go by of hub and spoke. That means you create Kochi as a hub and then look at places around within 2 hours drive to open resorts. That is the way of doing that. And we've always been very, very happy with the kind of quality of people, and like you said, it's a most literate state and tourism is an important factor. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
For the disruptive innovation, I would just say that there are brands, there is in fact brands, and in fact I'm not naming the brand, say Delhi an investment, where the hotel is cost per key 6 crores per room. By that Statler's rule, they should be charging 60,000 rupees a room. But actually they're able to charge probably about 20,000 or even 15,000 rupees a room. So you'll realize how difficult for them it will be to make it a return on investment. Whereas when I was talking to Partha, what is your investment per room? 25 lakhs, maybe recently 30 lakhs. So therefore they can achieve the room pricing on investment level and very close to that level which Statler was talking about. And therefore, they, despite being and very specific, very unique, and I can see that the hotel which they're opening in Tevara, brilliantly located, specific, and they found in the crowded market Cochin is, they found a gap, and they hit the gap on the head, and that's why, and that innovator, they can disrupt, they cause enormous disruption in the high investment market which hotel is tending to be, and they'll be competitive in that level, and that's why Keys is here to make their story. And the next speaker, we will have, in fact, why do people go on a holiday? Is it to stay in a hotel? Or is it to drink at the bar? I'm sure they do much more. They can do that all at home. They do for something else. They do to be active. They want to engage with. They engage with whether it's environment, community, the locality, and somebody who has been So I've been focusing on engaging experiences is the next speaker. And our next speaker is Pradeep Murthy, who comes, and when you engage, you will dirty your feet. So he calls himself Muddy Boots. And Sri Priya, will you please introduce Pradeep?
Sure, sir. Mr. Pradeep Murthy is the founder of Muddy Boots Vacations, a new generation travel company introducing the concept of active vacations to India and catering to the family, corporate and groups market. They offer outdoor programs in Wayanad, North Kerala, Malabar Coast, Coorg and the Nilgiris. Muddy Boots is also the activity partner for the Vivanta by Taj Group and presently offers activities to VBT guests in Madikeri, Baker and Kovalam. After doing his BTech from NIT Calicut in 1993, Pradeep took a familiar path into the IT industry. He remained a corporate citizen for the next 16 years, taking a break to do an MBA from IIM Bangalore. Among others, he worked in Wipro and subsequently in Deloitte and Accenture as a management and strategy consultant in London. However, his enthusiasm for the outdoors remained, and in 2009,
I was told that people might be interested in the story of Muddy Boots and how we built up and how we are where we are today. And so I thought it might be a good thing to tell you my 5-step approach to building your own company. So without further ado, let me jump into it. So what's the path to success? So as Mr. Dominic and Partha were telling us, disruptive innovation. You need to spot the opportunity in the market, make sure that it's the right opportunity. If you don't have your own idea, beg and borrow. Hopefully don't steal, but find the right idea, ask your friends, think about it, look upon your own experiences and make sure that that is something what you want to do. Make sure that you have the right market. Find out whether you want to address the SSS or the AIT markets, which is the right one for you. Is it big enough? What price are they willing to pay? Are they willing to come to where you have your services? All of the stuff that you need to do to make sure that you have a product which you can offer this market. Right? After which you would traditionally make your business plan, look at how much money you're going to make in the next X years and how much it's going to cost you to buy equipment, hire employees and do all the stuff that you need to do to run a company, how much your working capital is going to be, who's your angel investor going to be, who's your Series C, Series A investor going to be, and so on and so forth, and tie up all your funding sources. Right? And after which you would find the right people to hire and develop your product, and at some point hopefully be ready to sell your product, and then you would get into the execution of marketing your product and selling your product and refining it as it goes on. This is really what you want to hear? So this is what I thought I should talk to you about, right? And I thought really you can go Google for how to start a company on Google and you'll get far better information. Right? What I just told you is a very simplistic model. It's not going to in any way capture the complexity of starting your own business at all. Okay? The only way you're going to find that out is if you jump into it and start doing it yourself. So I thought about what can I talk to you about. So I can't tell you about starting your own company. There are people like Mr. Dominic or Partha who have started companies by the dozen and probably are far better qualified. And I'm sure many of you in the audience itself are probably far better qualified on advising people on how to start a company. Right? So what could I tell you about doing something in this space? So this is what I learned with Muddy Boots. Of all the information that was available on the internet, the business plans, the sample, the templates that you have, the market assessments, the funding sources, all that stuff, something I found missing was nobody really looks at the human element of this whole process, the whole journey. And that's what I would like to do in the next few slides. So the first one, it's very fashionable to say, jump and something will happen, right? If you think too much, you will never start your own company. I mean, a lot of us have been in the situation where, your colleague who you have been helping out every day suddenly has become your manager, right? And you're annoyed, you're pissed off, you want to quit, and the first thing you're like, I have to be my own boss. It's both ho gaya. It's way too much. I'm fed up. Now I have to be my own boss. I'm going to quit next month and start my own company. Okay? Very familiar thing. Lots of people say this. Now, by the way, before I jump into something I would say, what I'm going to say now may seem rather obvious, but I've been continually surprised by how many how few people actually do think about this stuff. I've seen many people fail or give up because I think they didn't focus enough on these human or soft elements. They focus too much on the financial numbers, the mechanics of running the business, the intricacies of how your marketing is going to work, how your sales is going to work, all that stuff. They quite forget about the bit that is you. You are the guy. You are the person running the company, and you shouldn't forget about yourself. So the first thing I would say is think about it. Is it the right time to do this? So if your wife just delivered a baby, maybe not the right time to go start your own company. Right? Just think about it a little bit. If you're just bought a new house with a big loan and you're paying a fat interest repayment every month, probably not the right time to start your own company. You're not going to be able to do anything with that. You will not have the energy or the focus to go run after your own business. When you start your own company, you will have to dedicate 24/7 into it, especially in tourism, because even if you open an asset-rich company like a resort, which has a lot of equipment and assets, the fundamental driver of success in tourism is your service. And when you start your own company, your service quality, the quality of your company is determined by you. Your employees will learn from what you set the standards to be. So if you cannot devote 24/7 to that company, you are not going to be successful. That's reality, unfortunately. Further examples, your parents are not well and you need to take care of them, you're not going to be able to do the job that you need to run your own company. Or if you just got the best school in town and your kids just enroll into it and you're going to have to pay 10 lakhs per month or per year into that school as fees, maybe you should think about, is this the right time to start my own company? But on the other hand, if you had a fight with your spouse yesterday and you're sleeping on the sofa, I think that you might probably be able to solve. It's not a big problem, right? That's not a big issue. So that's a tick there. You can still start a company if you're here. So second one I found was, a lot of people I spoke to used keep saying, I'm going to really rough it out for the next 2 years, and then I'm going to be, millionaire, billionaire, whatever. And I'm going to exit, and I'll be rolling in money. I again find it doesn't work. I suppose to an extent it depends on what age you are. If you're 18 and you're just out of college, you really probably don't have much of a lifestyle to maintain, so it really doesn't matter. But if you're like a lot of us in your 30s or in your 40s and you've had work and you're used to a certain degree of standard of living, coming down or compromising on it again impacts your ability to perform at the level you need to be to run a successful company. So, basic economics theory from what I remember, or the bits I didn't sleep, I remember my professor telling me that your level of consumption can only go up, it can't come down. So if you're used to going around in a car, you don't want to go around in a cycle anymore. So don't sell your car and buy a cycle. It's not sustainable. In 6 months, you'll be wondering why you're running this company. It doesn't work. Don't move out of your house and say, for the next 2 years, let's all move into this 1-bedroom flat and wherever. You have to find a way to stay in the same place you're in. Because otherwise, in 6 months, you or your family or your parents or your friends are going to say, what exactly are you doing? Why are you running this company? What is it? Is this really a good idea? And that is when your self-doubt comes in, where you will have to justify your company to yourself and to people around you. Yeah? Again, things like be able to eat at the same places you are going to. Right? Tattagadas are good once in a while, but if that is where your primary dinner comes from, probably you should rethink whether you're doing the right thing. It's not sustainable. Okay? And from my takeaway from the first one, which is level of consumption, is that whatever you tell yourself, McDonald's is never as good as Johnny Walker. Right? It's different. You can justify it all you want, but it doesn't work. And finally, make sure you have enough money, and I don't mean enough money to run the business. You will find it's to an extent it's reasonably straightforward or reasonably easy if you have the right plans and the right approach and things like that to find money to run your business, assuming you have done the right projections and estimates and all that stuff. Make sure you have enough money for yourself. Your investor is not going to ask you whether you have enough money to live. It's not his job to do that. It's your job to make sure that you have enough money to live. And when you don't, you will give up. So my takeaway or my learning was that in today's world, given the lifestyles or amount of money we need to live, I think it's probably realistic to say you might be able to save 1 or 2, or if you're really lucky, a few years of savings. It's not I don't think it's feasible to have so much of savings that you can afford to do nothing until your business gives you enough returns. Remember, a lot of us, before you jump into this, probably had very good paying corporate jobs, were earning significant sums of money a month or a year. And it'll be quite a while before your own business can afford to pay you that kind of money. So which means that you need to have enough savings to live for a certain while with your savings, but then you must have a plan B. How exactly are you going to, when it's 2 years and your savings have run out, how exactly are you going to be able to maintain your own lifestyle? You must have a plan B. If your plan is that in 2 years, my business plan says that my company will make enough profits for me to be able to pay myself 50 lakhs a year, or a crore a year, or 10 crores a year, whatever you are earning, it probably isn't a good idea, because a plan is just a plan. It's an estimate. I mean, if you put whatever number you want into Excel, it'll give you any answer you want. Right? So it's a plan. It's an estimate. Don't trust it blindly. Okay, so just think about it and say that it's make sure that you have a plan B to make sure that you are getting enough revenue through other means, whatever it be, to maintain the same lifestyle for you and your family. Don't rely only on your business. Again, it comes back to the standard of living that you need to maintain, because if you're not able to do that, you will give up.
Thank you, Pradeep. For I think we'll be on time, hopefully. We'll have a next speaker, and we began with the brick and mortar, what people will do when they travel. Now, our next speaker, I would just say, I'm reminded of a word: imagine. Imagine what I would do. Imagine what I'm going to do. Why am I going there? That leads out to stories. Stories are what drives people in this world of travel. And to talk to us about that, and hopefully, like Pradeep's disruption or Partha's disruption, now we will now hear from Vijay Prabhat on the new. In fact, many of us would say Storytrails. What does it got to do with the subject that we have on hand? I think it's got everything to do with the subject we have on hand. To hear that, we have Vijay to talk to us. And before that, Shri Priya, could you introduce our speaker?
Mr. Vijay Prabhat is the founder and managing director of Storytrails India Private Limited, an MBA from IIM Indore. Vijay has worked in the banking and IT industries. He was recently awarded the Young Creative Entrepreneur Award by the British Council and the Youth Achiever Award for Innovative Entrepreneurship by Yuva Shakti. He's a regular guest speaker at many forums and at many educational institutions. He enjoys traveling and is an avid marathon walker and runner. In that case, we would like to tell you that the first ever half marathon of Cochin happens on 29th of this month.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I must start by thanking Tai for inviting me to be a speaker here. As she introduced, I run an organization called Storytrails. And over the next 15 minutes or so, I'll talk about my experience of creating this company and running it over the last 6 years. Now, I am not an accomplished person yet. And I don't think I'm qualified enough to tell you what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur, because I'm still trying to figure that one out for myself. But I still think I might be able to add some value to this forum here today, simply because I am at this point going through all the struggles that any of you aspiring to be an entrepreneur might face in the first few years. So hopefully some of you will find this relevant. Now, I've structured my talk in 2 parts. The first 8 to 10 minutes, I'll talk about what we do at Storytrails, or how the idea evolved. And the latter part, I'll talk about some things that I have taken away from these last 6 years of trying to create this business. I usually don't like standing behind podiums, but unfortunately this is a fixed mic. So, may I take that one, please? Right, so let me start by asking you all a very simple and very almost rhetorical question. How many of you here like to travel? I'd be surprised if all of you did not raise your hands. But have you asked yourselves why you like to travel? I'm sure there are many different reasons. Some of us travel simply because it's an excuse for us to get away from our work. Right? Some of us travel, at least some of us travel because our neighbor has just got back from an exotic holiday. Often, of course, most of us travel also because it's time to change that Facebook profile picture. I love traveling too, and for me, traveling is like reading a book. Every month I go. It opens our mind to so many new experiences. And when I travel, what interests me most is the way people live their lives so differently in different parts of the world. Now, I'm sure you've heard this before. Every country, every region is different, and so is India. But what do you think really makes a place different, makes one place different from the other? It's not the varied landscapes or the beautiful architecture we have. Funnily, it's not even the crowded markets or chaotic streets. India, like every other country or every other region, is different or unique because of its people. It's different because of the beliefs and value systems we all carry, which go on to reflecting in our customs, our stereotypes, our mores, and our ways of life. Storytrails, the company that I started as an attempt to bring out these intangibles. Now, if I were a visitor, it is these intangibles that I would feel most interested in experiencing. But if you're interested in architecture, you might find an interest in heritage building. But where do you look for these kind of intangibles? You will find them in stories. Stories that have passed down generations and stories that exist behind seemingly ordinary everyday sights. Let me illustrate that point with a couple of examples. Now I see some of you in the audience. I went and asked my mother this question. I asked her, why do you wear a bindi? And she gave me an answer which sounded very plausible, very believable. But I went and asked my grandmother the same question. And she gave me another answer which also sounded very plausible, very believable. So I dug a little deeper and I discovered there is not one, but many, many explanations to something as common as a bindi. One of these stories goes that the bindi possibly started as a caste mark. The Brahmins wore white for purity, Kshatriyas wore red, Vaishyas wore yellow, Shudras wore black. Interestingly and thankfully, our story doesn't end there. So over a period of time, there were divisions and subdivisions within each of these castes. So among the Brahmins, the worshippers of Lord Shiva, they started sporting a mark which was like a horizontal mark on the forehead. And the worshippers of Lord Vishnu started sporting a mark which was a vertical mark on the forehead. Again, it doesn't end there. So eventually there were further subdivisions. And among the Vishnu worshippers, some started sporting a mark which looks like a U. And some started sporting a mark which looks like a Y. Subtle differences to the layperson, but to a believer, these are extremely important symbolisms. So let me tell you about what happened at a temple in Kanchipuram. So this temple, the priests, all Hindus, all Vishnu worshippers, all Brahmins, could not agree on whether the temple elephant should wear a Y or a U on its forehead. So they hemmed and hawed and debated and discussed and finally took the matter to court. Naturally, one of the sides was not very happy with the verdict, so it went to a higher court, and from there to a higher court, finally it reached the Supreme Court of India. And the Supreme Court had to set aside time from all its constitutional matters to rule that the elephant would wear a U every even year and a Y every odd year. Sometimes it is good to laugh at our own follies, but this is a true story. But do you think this, no, it's not, sacrilege? So they wrote to the East India Company saying, why don't we build a church here? Hopefully some of these young men will see the right path. The East India Company agreed, but not a penny came from there. But this Anglican feeling was so strong in the community that they all contributed money to build a church. Now, the funny thing was, the engineers of the East India Company, they were used to building forts. They had never built a church before. So they ended up building a church which looks like a fort, with walls which are 3 feet wide. In fact, it was considered a bomb-proof structure. If you had a shell landing on it, it would probably just bounce off it. But by the time this church was built in 1680, many of these Englishmen actually went and married the Portuguese ladies. And some of them had children also. So now a new problem cropped up. What happens to these children? What faith do they belong to? And again, after much debate and discussion, it was ruled that all the boys born out of such wedlocks would be raised as Anglicans and all the girls would be raised as Catholics. And so it was in Fort St. George for many, many years. Now this is a story of the same monument. It's a story that probably you'd not read in history books, but it's a story that might help you connect with the monument. It's a story that gives a human face to a monument that you're visiting. Our attempt is not just to discover stories like this, because it's not very difficult to find stories like this. The more difficult part is to structure it all as a trail. Now, tours by nature are multidimensional. It's not enough if I keep telling you story after story after story. I'm sure you'll all go to sleep. Our work as a tour operator is to put these stories in a context with a relevant site, with something that you experience, making sure that all the logistical tie-ups are in place, and ensuring that everything works like clockwork. We have done this over the last 6 years. In Chennai now, TripAdvisor rates us as Chennai's #1 attraction. Over the last 6 years, we've had many, many flattering reviews in Lonely Planet, Frommer's, and all kinds of travel publications. Last year, British Council recognized our work with a Young Creative Entrepreneurship Award. And for the first 4 or 5 years, we were limited in our work to Chennai. And last year, we set up these walks in Madurai too. And now we are looking to partner with individuals and organizations in other cities and set these walks up in other places, including Cochin. So much about our work. This is what we do, and I'm sure you've got a fair idea of what we do. Let me quickly talk about some of the things I've taken away from these 6 years. Now again, like I said, I'm not trying to preach here, but I'm sure these might strike a chord with some of you who've just started out or you're planning to start out anytime soon. There are 5 points that I'd like to cover. The first is the power of an organization. Now, Storytrails is not a complex idea. It's a very simple idea. It's no rocket science. The challenge was never in coming up with the idea. The challenge was, and is, it continues to be, to give this idea the shape of an organization. Now, a case where I create a product, I write my own stories, I take my guests out on a trail, I take the feedback, I take all the accolades. That's a very simplistic version of what we do at Storytrails. But add the dimension that these things have to go on and on without my being involved. And that's a very different ballgame. So most of the enterprises that I've seen fail personally, somewhere there is this lack of the use of this wonderful animal called an organization. From the beginning, you need to have this in your mind that it has to run without me around. It has to run with my core team being involved directly. And once you've achieved that, you've really used the potential of this awesome animal called the organization. The second thing that I would point out is about articulating your idea. So after I started, about a year after I started, or not a month after I started perhaps, I was there without a job. And I was thinking, oh, I don't have an employee, I don't have a product, I don't have a market, and I don't know where I can get any of these. What the hell am I doing? Now, surprisingly, I don't really remember thinking so much on these lines. Perhaps I was too charged up with my idea in those days. But every time I met someone skeptical, I would patiently try and explain what my idea was or why I thought it would work. And believe it or not, these debates, these discussions gave me a lot more clarity and conviction on what I was trying to achieve. Like they say, if you can't convince a person about your idea, it's a tall order to get somebody else to sell your idea for you. Right? So be very clear, be very articulate, try and get your idea very, very clear. You need to be your own salesperson. The third point that I'd like to cover is about networking. Again, something that doesn't come naturally to all of us necessarily. After I started, I made it a point to go try and get a speaker slot at various fora. I joined various social organizations, social clubs. I tried to create events which would get me into the newspapers, into magazines. Many of these worked, incidentally. And it's all free publicity. You don't really need to spend on getting visible all the time. So I thought that was time well spent. I still continue to do that. In fact, I've come from Chennai to speak here simply because it puts me in front of maybe, 200 people who are interested in this industry. Who knows what might come out of it tomorrow, right? So networking is something that needs to be done consciously. It doesn't come naturally to me. I'm not an extroverted personality, although I'm a storyteller. I'm still not an extroverted personality. So I need to make that effort. I'm sure it's the same with many of you here. The next issue that I would like to raise is scalability. Now, the very first storyteller we had was brilliant. You know, every script we gave her, she had this way of using it to charm her audiences. And the feedback was always fantastic. And I used to think, oh God, what happens if she leaves? That'll be the end of Storytrails. I think the best thing that happened to us in the first 2 years was that she left. And then we realized that all the storytellers we had trained, they seemed to be getting exactly the same kind of feedback from these trails. Over the last 6 years, we've created multiple kinds of trails, we've dealt with multiple audiences, we've even created trails in multiple cities, and if anything, the feedback has only gotten better. So now we know that what we are doing is scalable, and what we are doing can be replicated in other cities, which is why we took our 5 years to start in Madurai, but now that we've done Madurai, we know that we can do it in Bombay, in Bangalore, in Cochin, elsewhere. But it still has to be a conscious effort where you need to think whether my idea, is it just my individual brilliance or is there something to it that can scale up without my being involved? So from the beginning, we've shied away from cases where our success depends on individual brilliance. When we do a trail, we don't have a tie-up where a celebrity comes and talks because I can't ensure that will happen every single day. Whereas I have to ensure that my trail is available every single day. The last of the points that I would like to talk about is perseverance. If you ask me what is the most critical part of my journey over the last 6 years, I would say it's this. Now we've been at it for 6 years and we are doing okay now, but we are not wildly successful, like say a Facebook. And that does not worry me. I think many of us give up much before our time has come. And I've seen that with many small businesses. I know that if we stay on, sooner or later, we will also be wildly successful. But the point is to stay on till that really happens. Now to conclude, I'd like to go back to my business school days and talk about what I saw there. In a B school, I met all kinds of people. And there were some who are very sure on their first day that I wanted to become an investment banker or I wanted to become a hardcore salesperson. And they worked hard, they studied hard, and they made sure that that's what they did on the placements day, they got those kind of firms. There was also another category of people who did not know what kind of an organization they wanted to get into, even on the day of placements. I belong to that category. But I've had the conviction that I would be able to adapt, whatever the industry, whatever the place I am in. And I believe it has to be that way with an organization too. It's important to start with the big picture. Big picture is good, and it's great if you have a complete idea of what you want to be on the very first day you start out. But I believe it's also okay to let these things evolve. Many of the things that we're doing today were not part of our initial business plans at all. In fact, if I look at the projections that we'd come up with when I was just starting out, they don't even belong to the same industry I'm in today. So it's that wildly different. So the only parting words I would like to end this talk today with is that have the conviction that the idea that you have is workable, is scalable, and then let things take their own course. I'm sure you will find a way to fight all adversities that come along on your entrepreneurial journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now you heard Partha, Pradeep, and Vijay. And of course, you also heard me. Before we get into, we have a few minutes, I think, for a few questions and answers, which will be provided by these disruptive innovators. Now, before that, I'll take this liberty of telling you a story, since that's what Vijay's talk has triggered me. A story, some years ago, if you had gone to Finance Hall, the jetty there and the boat ferry which crossed from Finance Hall to Wellington Island, you would have seen a boat by the name of Himalayan Virgin. That's the name of the boat. I'll tell you the story about the boat. That name, some years ago, at that time, when ferry boats were more used and people here were more environmentally conscious, we all went across from Ernakulam to Island by boat. In those days, the fee, the price, the fare was 10 pice for the crossing. And there was this boat is on contract by the corporation, and there was a new boat had come, and there were two proposals by the community around. Some said, let's call the new boat Himalayan Devi, and the other group said, let's call the boat Virgin Mary. And then, after much negotiation and discussion, they decided to call it Himalayan Virgin. Both parties were satisfied. So that I suppose when Vijay comes there and talks about the boat, he would have discovered that story. Now we'll open this discussion for discussion from the audience too. All that, please keep it brief. State your name and ask a question and say who do you like the answer from. The floor is open now.
Please raise your hands. We'll come to you. Yeah.
So my name is Paul Matthews. I left my Silicon Valley job and started an IT company of all places in Wayanad. We are probably the only IT company there. What I wanted to ask you all is that I've built a fantastic product, and part of it is it could be used for the tourism industry. It's basically for customer engagement. Nowadays, many hotels, many tourist operators, you don't have that customer engagement, and my product lets you have customer engagement at a personalized level. So my question to you experts is that how do I go about selling it? How do I go about selling it to people like you, people in the tourism industry? Are there trade fairs? What are some of my options in selling it?
Murthy, would you like to answer that?
Mr. Paul, when we started Muddy Boots, I think what we started out with was the traditional way of trying to sell the product. Okay, so we were in this new market. We had a new product on the market, which was activities. I went the traditional route of going to Bangalore, to Chennai, to Bombay, to Coimbatore, to all the various markets that we felt were feeder markets for the activities we were doing, and tried to engage with the travel agents there and the tour operators there. They didn't understand. Okay, they didn't understand because they were more familiar and comfortable with what they were actually already selling, which was rooms, inventory, resorts, things like that. So they were not in a position to understand what we wanted. So it was very difficult. So later what I found was they were the wrong market to sell to, because they were not what we were, they were not our customers. So I think the revelation I had was
to ignore or to probably leave alone the tour operators market for the time being and look at who the actual customers were and try and sell to them. In time, the tour operators understood what we were doing and they came to us and started asking us what we do. So I think my learning from that was, to identify who your actual customers are, rather than go through the, typical or established or, the traditional channels of how you are supposed to sell your product. I think that's where the innovation comes in.
Vijay, would you like to have a hand at that question?
I really don't have much to add, but I can only share something from my experience about where we ran into a problem with marketing. Now, we were not sure who we should market our services to. So we went to all the usual suspects. We went to the hotels. All the hotels bought the idea. In fact, places like Taj were offering this as a complimentary service to their long-staying guests. But we didn't really get a lot of business from them because we realized most people who might take our tours would have already booked our tours before coming to Chennai. Right? So there was no point in marketing our services to a hotel. So now we work with a lot of travel agents, but at the origin, not in Chennai, not in Bangalore, but say in UK or in the US. I don't know if it helps answer your question, but something from my experience.
I think I've just got a signal that we have to bring this whole to a close. So we'll have just that one question and a minute to close it up.
So my name is Girish Mohan, and I am the director of this hotel called Clouds Valley, Munnar. And my question is to Mr. Jose Dominic. So we've seen numerous hotels come up in various locations across Kerala. But what do you think is a scope for another homegrown chain of hotels like an Abad or a casino? And if at all there's a scope, what strategy do you think one should adopt to differentiate, the new chain from the properties that are already there in the market?
We'll need a whole 1 hour. So we'll keep that for another time or offline. So I think with this, shall we bring it down, because I'm getting a signal that we have to close it. So apply the guillotine to this session. And so that, let me thank our three speakers. And I think truly, I think we have got new ideas, new approaches, a completely new paradigm that is possible even in this traditional business of tourism.
Moderator. Thank you, sir. Who's the MD of CGH Earth and is a charter member of TIE Kerala. Memento to Mr. Partha Chatterjee, advisor Big Green Hotels Private Limited. Small memento to Mr. Pradeep Murthy, founder of Muddy Boots Vacations. And also to Shri Vijay Prabhat, managing director of Storytrails India Private Limited.